we are here. Welcome to episode 143 of Blockchain Insider. My name's Simon Taylor and I'm joined by my co-host, Cuy Sheffield, head of crypto at Visa. How are you doing, Cuy? You had much sleep?
It's been a fun start to the week. So really excited for the show today. We've got great guests, a number of interesting news items to discuss. So let's get into it.
Let's do exactly that. All right. And today is, of course, a news show, as you mentioned, and we're going to look at some of the biggest stories from the last month, including something about NFTs. I don't know if anything happened with that in the last month. Of course, the Polygon hack and the cryptocurrency heist, where the hacker actually returned nearly all of the funds. So are they a white hat hacker or not? And then, of course, we're going to cover the ECB starting to work on a digital version of the euro. So can governments do crypto? Let's find out. I'm joined by some phenomenal guests. We're going to start off with Rhian Selkis, who is founder and CEO of Messari. How you doing, Rhian? You good?
I'm great. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Remind everybody what Messari does.
Messari organizes and contextualizes crypto asset information, which basically makes us the proverbial Bloomberg of crypto. We're a data and research platform that caters to several hundred of the top enterprises, both crypto projects, major exchanges, custodians, wallets, and increasingly traditional finance institutions that are looking beyond just Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Thank you, sir. And joining Rhian, we have Rhian Lewis, who's author of the Cryptocurrency Revolution. Thank you for joining us, Rhian. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. Nice to be on the show.
It's great to have you back on the show. All right, let's jump straight in with the news. Oh my goodness, NFTs have been flying lately. There's a ton of things happening in this landscape, so we're going to wrap it up with a few stories. But first, well, we've got somebody on the show with something to announce. My co-host, Cuy Sheffield, what just happened? Visa became the first company to purchase a CryptoPunk, and you've launched a white paper. Unpack all of that for me. What's the white paper? Why did you buy a punk? Tell me the story.
Yeah, so I think to start, we think that Visa is a lot more than a credit card company. And it's really been our goal to be this, engine of commerce. And what's really unique is that Visa's been around for so long. We've seen all of these different, commerce transformations. We've seen, brick and mortar to e-com. We've seen cash and check, to cards. And, as we've been closely following and researching, NFTs, for the past, several months, we're really starting to see signs that this is a new era of e-commerce. And we're thinking a lot about, what is NFT commerce? What does it mean? How can brands, how can merchants, how can consumers participate in it? And so we wanted to get involved. And so really our first step was, let's learn and let's actually go through the process and, collect an NFT. And so we decided to, acquire, CryptoPunk 7610. And add it to Visa's archive and our collection of historical, commerce artifacts. So the same way that we have early paper credit cards and point of sale systems, we have a lot of really cool old relics and artifacts of commerce history. And we think about this past, present, and future of commerce. And we felt that there's a place that, CryptoPunks as a historic project, they deserve to be there. And we're also really announcing our commitment to starting to work with merchants and brands and content platforms to help them navigate and participate in the NFT commerce ecosystem. And so we're incredibly excited about the space, and it's been fun to be able to engage with and interact with the community as we've done this morning.
And Cuy, tell me a little bit about the white paper that comes behind it as well, because the CryptoPunk is the marketing that everybody will see, but what's the white paper for?
So I think what we found is there's just a ton of confusion around what's the relationship between NFTs, blockchains, cryptocurrencies, and we're seeing significant interest from merchants and brands all across the world that are watching this space grow and saying, wait a minute, we have valuable intellectual property, like we have a e-commerce business. How can we get involved? But if you're not familiar with crypto, if you haven't been in the space, if you don't understand crypto infrastructure, it's really hard to just know where to start. And so you see people come in and try and do a drop on the weekend, and it's not really well thought out. We think there's so many different ways that brands and merchants can participate in the NFT commerce ecosystem. We wanted to help kind of unpack some of those ways and some of the opportunities that exist.
So I asked Twitter what questions they had from you, and former host and good friend of the show, Colin G. Platt, asked the question, why didn't you just right-click and save as?
It would have been a lot easier, but I don't think people would have been nearly as interested. And so I think today in our interaction with the community is a really good example of how this isn't just a piece of art. It's not just a JPEG. There's a very passionate community of collectors and artists and creators around it. And so you can only really activate that community and interact with it if you're actually collecting. And so that experience of collecting for a brand, I think, is incredibly valuable to build a brand identity and connect with these communities. And I think we'll see more and more brands recognize that over time.
Absolutely. Just to contextualize this, Cuy, as well, it's worth just kind of reading out some of the other headlines happening in NFTs at the same time. And then I want to bring our guests in to kind of pull this one apart. So we saw NFT trading has surged at least 8x, and that was 2 days ago. That's probably even more. I saw that OpenSea traded $125 million worth today. There's penguins, there's Bored Apes now. There's lots of different kind of collections really peaking. We saw Super Rare drop their own Rare token to try and decentralize NFTs. And we've even seen Cartoon Rocks or Pet Rocks selling for $500,000. And there's a craziness. There's potentially a hype around it right now. How do you contextualize all of this that's happening, Ryan, as you look at it, especially when I think about the normies and person on the street? This stuff looks kind of crazy.
Well, I think crypto is really a family of innovations that all just happen to hit at once. There was the macro narrative that catapulted Bitcoin last year amidst COVID and unprecedented levels of government spending. There was a significant de-risking in Ethereum and its scaling plans, coupled with a bunch of other layer 1 protocols and even layer 2 protocols that were solving some of the scalability problem on Ethereum core transactions. There was the birth of DeFi, which, let's not forget, is about a year old since Compound came out with its yield farming proposal. And then we had NFTs and the explosion of collectibles. All of them have matured in parallel over the past several years and taken off pretty much at the same time. So it's been a perfect storm. I think that they all feed off of each other to a certain extent, but the first thing you have to recognize that these are very different phenomenons. On the Bitcoin and kind of currency side, you have the macro narrative really taking root with institutions. On the other extreme, currency thesis, the same is true for Dogecoin and how it's rallied just as a meme coin for young investors that are speculating through Robinhood. Ethereum and the other major application platforms have grown because the fees have grown and because their stability and their scaling plans have been de-risked a little bit. DeFi is maybe the next down the pecking order when it comes to adoption from an investor perspective after Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then NFTs are just right now, at least, a purely retail phenomenon. And we could talk a little bit about whether there's actual any institutional support beyond just marketing. But by and large, all of these are riding crypto rails. They're all interesting in different ways. And it's fascinating to see it all by coincidence start to hit around the same time over the course of the last 18 months.
It really has been fascinating. That's definitely the word. Rhian, what are your thoughts as you contextualize this?
I quite like the take. David Hoffman wrote a good post on Bankless last week where he described NFTs as the marketable surface area of Ethereum. And I can really see that, this idea that it's drawing in a new crowd of people who weren't really engaging with crypto before. His particular take is that there are a lot more people that relate to culture than relate to finance, that it's a much wider audience. And just anecdotally, when Clubhouse was having its moment, whenever sort of 6-7 months ago, there were all these rooms with people who didn't have a crypto background talking about NFTs and learning about crypto in order to get into the NFT space. And it does seem to have sparked this massive interest, as you say, from a retail point of view, among people who just weren't involved before. Plus all...
No, that surface area comment, I think, really stuck with me. And sorry, Rhian, but that surface area of like artists and creators, as Cuy said, and people with communities, and that whole space just didn't really look at crypto and now does. The collectors didn't really look at crypto and now do. And I love Ryan's point of this collection of technologies that have matured together to kind of enable that. Cuy, I'm going to come back to you as you look at this and just sort of say, is this a specific moment in time? Is this a flash in the pan, or what perspective do you bring to NFTs over the medium to long term?
So I think it's absolutely early days, and there's a ton of hype, a ton of experimentation, and there will continue to be. But I think what's important is that culture is coming into crypto in a way that hasn't happened before. And when you have some of the most interesting, talented creatives, now starting to intersect with technologists and developers and engineers, you get really, really interesting products that didn't exist before. And I think the opportunity, I compare it a lot to e-commerce. If you think about what e-commerce did for small businesses, now someone can sell a product to anyone across the world. It's not just who lives in their neighborhood, but you still have to manufacture that product. You still have to pack it. You still have to ship it. And that's a high startup cost. And it's hard for a lot of people to start a business and be able to do that. There are a lot more people who just have an idea and they're creative. They're creating art, they're creating music, and now they can produce these goods in a digital way and then be able to sell them to a global audience where they're delivered instantly to a crypto address. And so the amount of velocity and participation in global commerce that can happen when you have these digital bare goods is incredibly exciting. And I think we've only just scratched the surface of what that means.
There was a really good Twitter thread by Chris Dixon from A16Z that was almost like a first principles look at Web 2 versus Web 3. And with Web 2, he describes the take rate of the platform being really high because they really own the distribution. You think about an iTunes or a Spotify and how much the end artist receives at the end of it versus the platform. And with Web 3, how the distribution is really turned upside down and how the ownership starts to get turned upside down and how that can change things. So NFTs are becoming business for the creators, but do you see that, Ryan, in any other sectors? Where do you think NFTs go from here?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I tend to watch very closely whatever the next big toy is. The next major innovation tends to look like a toy at first. I think that's held true for quite a while in tech and in crypto in particular. I have invested in a few companies. I actually have not invested in NFTs directly, or really started dabbling in them directly just because I don't fully understand them as collectibles. But I'm much more interested in the infrastructure companies that are supporting them because I do think that having discrete digital IP that can be traded on blockchains is going to be a tremendous evolution of markets and financial markets, whether you're talking about securities, real estate, collectibles, metaverse, digital goods, some of the other early applications that we've seen, or you're talking about much larger financial assets and IP rights. We saw in 2013 and 2014 early experiments in how to digitize IP and make them non-fungible but tradable on Bitcoin even. And obviously it was too early then, but it does feel like the rails are mature enough and the tech is mature enough to support, 1,000 different experiments, which is what's so exciting. Having said that, I would not necessarily be short or think that the the market dynamics today are unsustainable. Perhaps they are, perhaps they aren't. But this could be, the first inning or, the third inning right before the big drawdown in NFTs. And with these cycles, you never really know how high you'll go or how low you'll go after the initial surge. But I think the long-term direction is what's most important here. And this is where we're going to start to see a lot of the infrastructure get built out to support NFTs and all of their flavors over the course of the next 10 years.
Yeah, the 10 years are a lot more exciting than the 10 months for sure. And I think that's a sentiment widely shared. There was a great blog post by the guys at John Street Capital about a year ago called The Financialization of Everything, where every kind of asset is, whether it's sneakers, whether it's video games, whatever it is, there's a finance element to them creeping in. And I loved your answer to, is crypto mainstream, Ryan, because you said for Gen Z and Gen Y, yes, it is, because they live in this world where everything is financialized. And also they can't rely on their 401k for retirement, and they don't own property. So they're pissed off and they're looking for other ways to make money. So I think that whole space is just super exciting. Look, we could go longer on NFTs, but we're going to have to move to the next story because this is the news show. But we left you wanting more. If you want to hear more from Cuy, you want to hear more about NFTs, in the very next Insights episode, we're going to be talking all things NFTs and crack down on with some incredible guests that we're excited to have on the show. So make sure you tune in on the 8th of September for that one. Alrighty, the next story.